So, good morning, good day, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, because I have people that have contacted me, and it always amazes me how big this world is, and there's people that have time enough to watch this and join me. So, thank you very much if you have. This is Terry from Jensen Dental Technical Support, and today we're going to revisit a video I did a long time ago, and you might see a few changes in this because because I've gotten a little bit better at it, and I just like everybody else's technique. Your technique is always evolving. If your technique's not evolving, you're not breathing. I seem to think that everybody gets either a little bit better or they learn something. But we're going to talk primarily about the translucent smoke and storm, which are ways to adjust value and increase translucency, or at least the illusion of it. So let's go ahead and get started with the old video, and we'll see what happens from there. Okay, so we have the translucent smoke and storm here. These are ones we're going to be taking a closer look at today. And I tried to make the smoke look like smoke because it's kind of a purple gray, and the storm's kind of a blue gray or blue blackish gray. So these are the two colors we'll be dealing with. Great colors to use and really good tools in your kit. So if we look at the smoke is a violet or a purple gray. It's great. It's just like the creation illusion powder was, where it gives you the illusion of depth and translucency. It's very safe. It's really hard to mess up with smoke. Not that you can't mess up with anything. The storm, however, is very, very potent. The storm is like a whole notch above the smoke. It's a blue gray, so it's think of a nice deep blue color, and then you add a little bit of a gray to it, and it gives you the illusion of translucence. So like if you have that translucent window above an incisal halo, or you have translucency in the proximal incisal edges. And notice the different perception of chroma from an overhead angle, and the lighting's different also. So this is some stuff I just did a couple days ago. So you see there, it's a little bit different lighting and a different angle. So we'll see it from both angles, because I'm going to show you a few different things I've learned. Of course, we have the glazed paste here, the in-sync glazed paste, and both those little dots, the one in the well there and the one in the well that has room for liquid, are both the same material. So this is a proper starting point for the in-sync paste glaze consistency. You see how I pull my spatula up in its strings? With a little pile like that, you're going to have it string maybe about a quarter to a half an inch from the jar, maybe more than that. So I just dip the tip of my zirconia spatula into a little bit of liquid, and I just thin down that one pile a little bit more than the other. And with the addition of minor amounts of the in-sync paste glaze liquid, you don't want your glaze to become fully liquid. You want it still to be viscous, but you want it flowable. Think of it like a heavy latex paint or a heavy tempera paint, or like nail polish. So you want it to be able to flow on but not to run. And this allows it to stick to the surface, because we have a surface tension that's been built into this. And here's my number one red sable brush, which I love to use for applying the paste glaze. Look, like I said, this stuff is a lot like the consistency of nail polish. So that number one sable brush is about the diameter and about the length of a nail polish applicator brush. So when you saw me apply it there, I had my brush at an angle. Now you'll see me do it later in this video, where I have it at a much more parallel angle. So I'm going to use some storm for that translucent window above the incisal edge. This original video, you see me using the nail palette there, because that way I don't have to keep going back to my palette if I'm working in a normal situation. This is before the advent of the MiYO brushes, so this is just a hobby shop brush here, and I got to say it wasn't it was okay. So adjusting the consistency of the storm will facilitate flow off the brush tip. That, and having a little bit of glaze liquid in the brush tip to act like a separator so it'll flow off. Now you don't want to push through your in-sync paste glaze base layer. You want to let the color touch the paste glaze that's on your substructure, and it should want to stick to it and flow right off. Now, if it doesn't, you might not have your color thin down just quite enough. You don't want to thin it down too much because then it'll run like water. But you want it just a little thinner than it is, just like we did with the paste glaze. We're going to do that with the color, so it'll flow off. And you see me here touching it up. And any adjustments to the application can be accomplished in seconds with a clean brush that you wipe, get your water out of it, and then you dampen it with the in-sync paste glaze liquid. And this way it won't grab the colors and you can slide them around. So you see I've adjusted it here and I have a nice little fine line. So now I'm going to apply a little bit of the smoke. And the smoke's great for the illusion of depth and to make it look like it's slightly lower in value. So that the lowering in value that's inherent with translucence in teeth. But mind you, there's 80% ceramic and 20% pigment. And I forgot to show you thinning the smoke on screen, so I apologize, but it's on my thumbnail. You know where it is. There it is. Okay. Didn't hide it from you. So you want to glide it off, and it's thinned down so it'll slide right off the brush. And that's also why there's two things applying a little glaze liquid to the brush does. It displaces any inherent water that you might have that would keep this material from being WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get, but it also acts as a separator agent and allows the material to slide off the brush. And you can see the value starting in the incisal third, starting to lower just a little bit, and it'll look a little bit deeper and translucent. And it'll bake within 99 to 100 points of 100 points, as long as you've mixed it up the first part of the day, 5 or 6 seconds in the jar, or if you have it in stain wells, 2 or 3 seconds. But I mean, you just want to make sure it's 80% ceramic, 20% pigment. You want to make sure you have a homogeneous mix and all the color particles haven't settled down the bottom. Honestly, the whole stain tray to mix it up, if you have 20 colors in there, it's going to take you a couple minutes. A couple of minutes. It takes you more time to go to the coffee dispenser and get your coffee right. So don't worry about how long it'll take you. Oh, so here we go. And the original video would have ended right here. So in the months that have passed since the original video, what has been learned from further experience? Or what have I learned from further experience that I'm going to try to impart upon you? So here again is one of my zirconia restorations as sintered, and it's held in my fly tying vise right there. And along with smoke and storm, I'm going to show cobalt too, because cobalt's actually the next progression up. So adjusting consistency is quite important for different application effects. So I'll get a little bit of smoke and just a little bit of liquid, and I'll thin it down because, you know, as it comes from the jar, even though it's properly mixed, it's kind of like thin peanut butter. You know, it doesn't want to flow off the brush real easily. In fact, it wants to hang on unless you have a lot of liquid in your brush to let it flow off to act like a separator. But I find if I tap just a little bit of liquid in it, and so I pick up a little bit of liquid from the brush and I pat it in there. So see, I'm getting some cobalt there. Get a little bit more, and then I'll pick up some liquid. And then I kind of pat it in the surface so that it mixes in. And you can see a little bit of a glistening to it, and that means that it's getting a little bit more like a nail polish type consistency. So here is the smoke. You see the violet gray? And the smoke is very safe, and the smoke will lower value very slightly, but it won't make it look like it's totally translucent, like a proximal incisal window or the halo above an incisal edge. So here's the storm. This is what will make it look like that. But mind you, I have all three of these thinned down to the same consistency, just to give you an idea. And in orders of magnitude, the storm is about twice as intense as the smoke. Now it's thinned down so it doesn't look super crazy right there. So there, I'm carrying it up, and you can see, you can just definitely see a difference between storm and smoke. And here's the cobalt. Now this is thinned down just as much, maybe even more, and look at the cobalt, look at the intensity. The cobalt is not very forgiving if you use it wrong. So I would suggest that before you use cobalt, maybe you get a restoration out, or you get your Vita shade guide or your Chromoscope shade guide, and you try it out and see how it works for you. So here I want to put a little storm down first. This is what I would do in real life. Unless I have a super translucent window, I will put just a faint amount down. You see it coming off the brush. Now this is the MiYO #1 brush, which is the same size as a 50. It's a pretty nice little brush. And any effect can be adjusted prior to firing. So, I'm holding this in a vise. I normally hold the crown 90 degrees to this angle, but for purposes of illustration, it makes it easier for you to see it this way. So I'm putting some Mamelon lobes in here, kind of like you would do with a lateral segmented buildup if you were an advanced ceramist and doing this in a buildup feature. So I'm pulling the storm up, but the proximal is a little thick, the lines are a little thick, so more adjustments as necessary. Clean brush, wipe it out after you get it cleaned in water with a tissue, and get a little glaze liquid in it. You can push these colors around. So here I'm adding a little bit of a coral mamelon. Now, coral is about the intensity of a ripe peach flesh. So showing the storm how it accentuates the coral. And it's very interesting to see how it sets it off, because if you just had the coral sitting there by itself, it wouldn't have the pop. And here's a little spring, halo spring, accentuating the storm effect. So you can see around the edge where it's got a little bit of a glow there. And one part of the kit works with the other part of the kit. The old, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Well, all these colors tend to really enhance each other. So now I'm going to apply a little bit of smoke to slightly lower the value and increase the translucent look. Not that you have to, but I'm just showing that you can float all these colors on. And you can do it at different procedural times when you're applying the MiYO. As long as it hadn't been fired first, well, you can do it after it's fired, but that requires an extra firing. So what you want to do is use a very parallel motion and just let the color touch the paste glaze or the previous coat of color, and it'll pull right off the brush. You just don't want to push through your previous layer, so you want to float it right on top of that, and you can see where it's lowering the value. And again, anytime you do something, even with all the multiple layers, if you apply too much, you don't like it, you can clean that brush in water, wipe it in a tissue, get the slightest amount of just dampness of instant glaze liquid, and you could wipe off that top layer without really disturbing the couple layers underneath it. It's very user-friendly, but you have to be smooth. So smoke, or conversely lumen, can be added to adjust your value. Lumen to raise value, smoke to lower the value. It's very interesting how it works. Now here I have a demonstration of when to use Cobalt, because Cobalt is kind of like a storm on steroids. So I'm putting my in-sync paste glaze liquid, as I always would. This is a B4 tab. I didn't show it, but it is a B4, trust me. I hope you can trust me. So there's some Cobalt. Now look how blue that is. When you look at this in real life, it looks like all of a sudden there's no color. It's just translucent porcelain on top of that shade guy. And how carefully you apply it, and how carefully you float it. And you can clean your brush right now and wipe it off with a tissue, and then use a little glaze liquid, and you can just take it at about a 5 or 8 degree angle, touch the tip of it, and pull this color towards the cervical and really fade it out. Now you see I've applied slate to the right side there. I didn't show it, but that's slate. Slate is a true gray. So the mesial is a true gray, and the distal is the Cobalt, which is a blue gray, but with a lot of blue. And Cobalt can also be used on a restoration to simulate mercury leaching from an amalgam filling if you had to match one tooth. So there you go. We had the smoke and the storm, and maybe a little Cobalt, and maybe just a touch of slate. But they're really great things for looking at translucency and simulating translucency and adjusting value on your restorations. So this has been Terry with Jensen. If you still have questions, call our technical department at 800-528-5531 for further assistance. We're there. We want to make sure you're happy. And I've messed up a lot of stuff, so I know how to bail myself out. And that's my job, is to help bail you out should you get in any kind of situation that you feel uncomfortable with. Make sure to follow us on Jensen Dental on Facebook and Instagram so you can be updated every time we go live. You can also visit jensendental.com/MiYO to learn more about MiYO. Also, if you've bought the kit, look at our education site. It's really got a plethora of anything you would need to show. I've been doing lots of videos and they're all archived there. Thanks for watching today. Please click the follow button to get notifications of future MiYO education tips and tricks. This has been Terry with Jensen. Thank you so much for spending part of your Wednesday with me.